Hey guys, happy Sunday. It is day number 77 of 90 Facebook Lives. I'm Alan Thomas with Rethink Dieting for Men, part of Transform My Future. And it's where I'm coming to you guys really every day just to talk about this thought about obesity, especially as it relates to men, and really challenging you to rethink this whole process. Give you a little backstory to me. I do this every day when I get on here live. In 2017, I stepped on the scale and saw 304 pounds. It was March the 2nd, 2017. I had, it was the day after my 31st wedding anniversary. My wife Angie and I have 4 children, and I was in the life insurance business, and I predominantly focused on people that were over 65, but a good many people from like 55 to 65. And I realized I'd never met anybody over age 65, a man over age 65 that was more than 100 pounds overweight. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, oh my God, I've got 10 years or less to live. I was 55 at the time. And it was just one of those moments where I realized, my wife was likely going to be bearing me from some obesity related illness, death. My kids would, have to go through their life with their dad dying from something that clearly could have been prevented. And it was just one of those moments where you realize that, gosh, I've still got a lot left in me. I'm still young. I still think young, even though my chronological years are, I was 55, I'm 58 right now. But I just realized that there was more that I wanted to do, and I didn't want to leave my family, and I didn't want to be, to go through life just to die from because I couldn't put a cheeseburger down or whatever it was really alarming to me. And just thinking of all those times that I'd tried so hard and at weight loss, and I just never won that battle. And I've been successful, married a beautiful lady, Angie, and had gorgeous kids who were successful, but I couldn't even get my weight down. My business was good, but it seemed like everywhere I turned, I had to say that my weight really did hold me back. And it was so frustrating because, I tried, golly, just dozens and dozens and dozens of diets. And really what I was looking for was something that I could do anything I wanted, whenever I wanted, and then still have, I got in the mind, I was always of the mindset that, I wanted to find something that was basically kind of like a lottery ticket diet, one that you could eat anything you wanted and never gain any weight and be super fit from that. And it just doesn't exist. And so, when from that point, I actually committed publicly that I'd lose 129 pounds in 265 days, and I hit that number in 260 days. I lost 129 pounds in 260 days. And I don't say that ever to impress you, because I should have never been fat to start with. But the reality is it was always within my control. And was it the diet that I went on? Well, I went on a great program. I mean, I love what I used as far as the type of way of eating that I learned to do, the program that I used. But the reality was I'd failed on it 5 or 6 times, not to mention the probably 70 or 80 other diets I'd been on and failed at. So was it really the diet? No. Is that an important a component? 100%. Yeah, you got to change what you eat or you're not going to lose weight. You've got to change how you move or you're not going to get healthy. I mean, to change, you have to make a decision, which really means to cut off from. But, I was thinking about something. I've talked about this before, but this thought of, whose responsibility is it anyway? I mean, for me, I always had a lot of excuses. I just had a big appetite. I was big boned. I really wasn't big boned. But I was big boned. I had a tendency to want to eat. I just couldn't control myself. I had a sweet tooth. I had all these coping mechanisms that put me in the fat seat on the airplane where I had to wear two seat belts whenever I flew anywhere. It put me in embarrassing situations where, I knew my family was ashamed of how fat I'd let myself get. And, but I was still of the mindset that, oh, there's some magical diet out there. And so really, what I posted in the And the title here is having to do with Exodus, I think it's Exodus 4:2, where Moses is standing there at the burning bush, and God is telling him all these things that he's going to do, how he's going to lead his people out of Egypt into the promised land, and he's going to do all this stuff. And all Moses could do was come up with a sack of excuses. He had excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse. And what God said back to him was, "What is in your hand?" And what he was saying to him, he said, "What tools do you have?" And he said, "Well, I got a staff." And so he said, "Throw that on the ground." And I'm paraphrasing here. This is not a Bible class here, but he said, "Throw it on the ground." He threw it on the ground, it became a snake, and then he went and hid. It scared him then, so he ran and hid. He said, "Get it back out here," and grab that snake. And he grabbed the snake, and it turned back into a staff. And I think it's really kind of interesting when you fast forward to how much ever the time passed, and there were 600,000 men plus women, children, and livestock, on their knees at the banks of the Red Sea, and trapped by the Red Sea as they were leaving Egypt. They were trapped there, and the biggest army on the face of the planet, the Egyptian army, were coming at them with swords drawn and arrows drawn and all this, and they were going to slaughter them. And two things that are interesting. Number one, God said, "Tell your people to stop crying out to me," which means stop praying. You can look it up in the New Living Translation. I think has the best translation on that. So stop praying, start moving, and take that stick that you turned into a snake. He didn't say it that way. That turned into a snake, and hold it over the water, and I'll part the sea. So it's interesting. What was in his hand was a solution for a whole lot of stuff. And when I think about that as it related to weight loss, what has that got to do with being obese? Well, the power's in your hand already. I mean, that's what's so interesting. When I work with men and they realize that are there things they've got to do and that they've got to change? Of course there are. Are there things they need to learn? Of course there are. But it's so interesting when I work with a man and he realizes that his weight was always 100% within his control, and the excuses that I had, like you probably have, just don't apply unless you have some rare genetic disorder that I'm not aware of. I'm certainly not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist, dietitian, or physical fitness expert, but I'm a guy that made it through the wilderness of obesity to come out the other side, and that's really what I help men with. And so what I say this to you is the power is in your hand. I mean, it is. And if you don't believe it is, I'm sorry, you might need to rethink dieting. And because when you look at what happens every time when somebody applies the principles that we teach, and they apply them consistently, apply them. Is it easy? Heck no. Is it simple? Oh yeah. It's really simple, but not a lot of people are doing it because we're all looking for that lottery ticket diet. We all have that excuse. Want to put it off till Tuesday because we've got a birthday party today or whatever, and you don't want to make those hard decisions to get your health back. And it's sad for me when I talk to men that are 100, 200, 300 pounds overweight. I talk to them every day, and they just don't believe this even possible to lose weight. They're really looking for a tip or trick to get the weight off. There are no tips or tricks. You've got to completely rethink the process. The $72 billion diet industry, it works for some people, but it mainly works for the people who are selling it. What I love to see is I'd love to see a man come alive and realize that the power to overcome his obesity is always within his hand. It's always within his hand. And when he realizes that, and he takes that same energy that he used to fight weight for the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and all of a sudden that energy that he had that he was fighting the weight with, he doesn't need to fight the weight with because he's winning. And then his business gets better, his relationships get better, he becomes more attentive in situations, and just starts winning across the board. And I love it when I get text messages or emails from guys that I work with and they're never talking about their weight. They're losing weight, but they're never talking about it. They're talking about all the other stuff that they were missing that now they're getting because they got control of this little thing called the fork. And they got realized the power was always within them to control this. And it's so cool to see it happen. And you see a man come alive that didn't believe he had it in him anymore. And it's like he's a 16-year-old with his first car again. So, guys, I say this, I don't say any of these things to shame you. If you're obese watching this, I don't say them to discourage you. I say it to encourage you. There's a way out. And, if you need some help and like to have an honest conversation, go to transformmyfuture.com/apply. My name is Alan Thomas. Be glad to get on the phone with you, figure out a strategy to help you overcome, your obesity so that you can get your life back. I mean, because it goes way beyond just losing weight and looking good in a size 32-inch waist pants or whatever that is. It goes way beyond that. The joy that you're potentially missing, not to mention the years that you're taking off your life without facing this. It's disheartening. So, but be encouraged. There's a way out. I'm living proof, and more men are coming along. So go to rethinkdieting.com. You can watch a free masterclass, and go to transformmyfuture.com/apply and join me for a breakthrough session where we'll spend about 45 minutes and figure out some strategies and how we can get you from where you are to where you want to be. You guys have a great